Hey everyone, today I've got my WandaVision Episode 8 Disney Plus review. With an episode titled Previously On, it could only mean it has to do with something we have already seen or known about, and now we get to see more of what that is unfold. So is it worth still finding out? So as far as the story goes, this episode is definitely very interesting. Not only is it the second to last episode of the series, but it definitely is starting off on a pretty freaky note, and one that has nothing to do with Wanda or Vision whatsoever. It starts out showing Agatha's backstory as a witch, and I actually found it to be utter terrifying to witness. Not only was it exploring, her being among this coven of witches doing this stuff with magic, and well, it didn't exactly, go over well with Agatha, and she basically wanted to be the top boss of all the witches. And I feel like I had seen this before in another show that I liked that explored the sort of witch coven element, and it was also a fantasy TV show I used to watch. Basically, what went down just proved that Agatha is just way too powerful. She is a force to be reckoned with, and I think she pulled it off in such a fantastic way that I was like, wow, this is just jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring. I was like, those visuals were flawless. Not only did we see her backstory, but then it goes back to the present where we last left off Agatha when we found out that Agnes was Agatha Harkness. We still had to find out what the heck she did with Wanda's two kids. We have this standoff between Agatha and Wanda. Agatha has no hold over them, but now Agatha is starting to get a hold of Wanda, which is now even more apparent because when we visit Wanda's backstory this time around and how she grew up watching sitcoms, like all the sitcoms that were inspired by the previous episodes. So I found that to be, very cool to see, okay, so we were right about this, and this show being the inspiration, if it wasn't completely obvious the first time. Maybe Wanda has gone through a lot of trauma, and what they showed as far as that trauma goes, I just couldn't believe what I saw. I mean, it was kind of heartbreaking to watch, I'll be honest, and I'm not going to say that I cried or anything, but it was kind of depressing because now we see, this full-blown mental breakdown of everything that Wanda went through, and it's this trauma in her life that she's not always able to deal with on her own. And that's why Agatha, came into the picture in the first place. Speaking of Wanda, as far as the casting goes, Elizabeth Olsen feels so much more vulnerable now, and it's as believable since the beginning of the series. And I think that, she plays this role so well that every little thing that happens to her is just, you feel your heartbreak for her, but then you also want to see her succeed as well. And Kathryn Hahn as Agatha, like I said, is just superb in her role. And when she comes off as being comical, in her previous movies, and then you see her here, and it's just so dramatic, and yet combining the two, I just found it to be so genius that she's able to pull it off. When Paul Bettany finally shows up on screen as Vision, I feel like one of Vision's lines that just got me all choked up was after Wanda tells him that she misses her brother, and he says, "What is grief if not love persevering?" I swear, they have the best love story ever, and I want to see that continue, even if at this point you have to sort of admit to yourself that maybe it's not gonna happen. So we'll see what happens in the final episode. it's gonna be an interesting conclusion to this whole series, so don't know if I'm looking forward to that. So the things I liked about this episode was that even though it was actually starting to be a bit longer of an episode than any of the previous ones we had seen, I still felt entertained by it. And even though I've basically given perfect scores across the board, there is just something about this where like I don't want to see it end, because even though it goes by quick, it's just everything you see makes sense. And adding on to the story of Wanda and Vision, there are these visually stunning scenes that really stand out to me. And there was one in particular where they reveal Wanda's inevitable destiny as the Scarlet Witch. She was held in some kind of facility where they were like testing her abilities, or like figuring out, oh, so she's the one that's, gonna make this stone work. But Agatha keeps pushing Wanda to, almost to the breaking point where it's like, she's gonna ultimately become too powerful. So you better watch out, Agatha, because she might do you in eventually. And it leads her to see Vision looking like Humpty Dumpty, who needed to be put back together again. And that special moment Wanda had with his body was one that made me want to cry again, because when she returns to Sword and is being told like, no, you can't see him, like, you can't see Vision, and I'm like, seriously, dude? Like, let her go see her man, because she wants to bury his ass. And watching the origin of how she created this whole sitcom world, and it was also visually pleasing too. The episode ends with Agatha holding Billy and Tommy hostage, and finally, at long last, I feel like the fans would totally appreciate this, where she called Wanda the Scarlet Witch. And the line delivery of that was just so powerful. I was like, there it is right there. Overall, I would say that I couldn't expect anything less from this episode. I can't wait to see how it ends, but I'm also probably going to be sad when it does. So I would highly recommend seeing this episode, and I would give this 5 hearts on the heart rate scale. So let me know in the comments what you guys thought of WandaVision episode 8. And as always, you guys can subscribe to my channel. I've got more movie reviews, movie updates, come back every week for a Child Thursday video. You guys can also like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. And I'll see you guys later.